You betcha. And boy, Ken, it's a beautiful day out there. It's a beautiful Saturday morning. I say it every Saturday morning, but today I actually mean it.
That's what you say every show.
I know. It's crazy beautiful.
It is.
Getting up early in the morning is the way to do it. I mean, I think all gardeners should train themselves to get up early in the morning. That's when the garden looks the freshest. That's when the birds are flittering around, and it's just a beautiful thing.
It's glorious. Yeah, this morning the sun beaming in, and that's the thing, when the sun comes up, in the morning, and it comes in on that steep angle, casts a shadow, and every little fly and bug in the air looks just amazing. It's a wonderful time of the day.
Yeah, the only problem is, like Donna gets so upset because when the sun comes through, it reminds her she needs to do some dusting.
Oh, yeah. Well,
it really shows up.
Wait an hour and then
it really shows up. And the other thing, when the sun's on that angle, my sin lawn has a sheen to it.
Oh.
It's the only time that you can actually see that it's not real grass is when the sun shines a certain way on it, and it kind of. Other than that, we've had people come by wanting to aerate our sin lawn. Anyway, we're gonna do the tips and the plants of the week.
You betcha.
My tip of the week is sow smaller, more frequent sowings: peas, radishes, lettuce. I think this was last week's, but anyway, that's okay. Double up. That's okay, because that's a very important tip. So it deserves having it two weeks in a row.
Absolutely.
Plant of the week is the peony red charm. Ken.
Oh, yes.
My red charm is in bloom, and what a beauty it is.
It certainly is a gorgeous peony, that's for sure. All right, I also have a tip on a plant, and my tip of the week is that the raised beds are certainly much faster to get going in the springtime. Just the fact that the beds are actually up and out of the earth where it's cool and exposed to the warm air and the sunshine, they just warm up faster. So, those people with raised beds will get a little jump on the other folks, the growing plants at ground level. But again, root crops tend to do better when they're grown in the ground, and all the other crops seem to do better in raised beds, especially tomato plants. But that's the way it goes. All right, my plant of the week is the Saxifraga ardensii, the mossy saxifrage. This particular one is one of the prettier plants, and I just came across a mass planting of it, and it was so gorgeous. I took a little mini video of it, and I just thought, that is amazing. Mossy saxifrage, you got to give it a try. It's a real cool plant. All right, that's my plant and tip of the week. Remember to check growercoach.com.
And it's quite drought tolerant, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems to be pretty good.
In fact, if it's overwatered, sometimes it can rot.
Yeah, it's part of it survives in shade as well.
Yeah. That is my red charm peony.
Yeah, it's glorious. You should send me that picture.
I remember when my brother bought this red charm from Ferncliff Greenhouses, or Ferncliff Gardens in Vancouver.
Right.
They're the peony specialists well, they were. I'm not sure now. The world of horticulture has evolved so much since I was actually running a garden center that who knows. But Ferncliff is still there. Their website's up and everything. They're the ones where they have the specialty peonies and regular stuff too. But anyway, red charm, Al was all over that. He just, red charm peony is so beautiful, Don. You got to have one. So he brought one home and he planted it when he was staying. When Al and Karen were living in the old house on the property on Ethel Street, planted it there. And, of course, when we sold that property, the very first thing we did was we dug out that red charm and split it up with the family members. I got a piece. My sister got a piece. Al got a piece. Dad and Mom got a piece. So we just split it all up. So that was it. Now, I don't know where everyone else... Well, I know where my sister's piece is. It's still in her garden in Gibson's.
Nice.
But this one has been in our garden since we moved to Rhonda Crescent in 1997, and it's just fabulous. We enjoy it so much every year. Last week, the Japanese fernleaf peony was doing its thing, and it was the best we've ever seen it. It was a fantastic thing.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Peony season is upon us.
Yeah,
even my tree peonies are starting to bloom. I've got a double deep red or purple sort of color one that is. It's today is when the first day it's going to fully open. So I'm going to take some pictures of that, put that online. And then, of course, my Radiant tree peony, which is just a little bit after that. It's got only one bloom opening on it, but it's going to be maybe a week or so delayed. But what a beauty. That is pure pink with a light white fringe on the edge. It's a gorgeous plant. Anybody who watches our Facebook pages or Instagram has probably seen that peony every year. It's just one of those things where anticipation is what it's all about, because they just bloom for a couple days.
No, they don't bloom for a long time.
Yeah, and especially this year, it looks like it's going to be hot. Like tomorrow, 27, 28 degrees, something like that. So
people say to me, "Well, why would you have a plant that only blooms for 2 or 3 days?" And I said, "Well, Christmas is only one day."
Yeah, exactly.
So there you go.
Yeah.
We want to say hello to Ariel. She's joining us this morning. First caller up.
Thank you. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I have declared war upon these aphids, upon my Helleborus. I've had to really cut away about, I think 3/4 of the plants. There was thousands of them on it. And I am diligently spraying with the soap, Dawn, or soap mixed up with a little bit of vinegar on it. And I was looking at it this morning, and I'm thinking, there's a heck of a lot less now that I got rid of a lot of the leaves, because they were all crammed together, right? This Helleborus is loving where it is, and it just got huge. So I hope I'm doing the right thing, because I didn't want to kill the plant, but gee, it's ridiculous.
I wonder you should do a little experimenting, Ariel. You won't kill the plant doing this, but try taking some hydrogen peroxide, 3%, and mix maybe a tablespoon or so in a liter, and spray it with that. See what happens. Okay,
well, I'll do that before I go out there, because it is drying up right now. The next thing I wanted to ask you was, I have a double play candy corn, which I got probably 3 years ago. It is not thriving, and it says that it needs acid soil. And I'm going, well, is our soil acid or alkaline?
It's extremely alkaline, actually.
Okay, so what would I do to help acidify it? Would I put some of the azalea rhododendron those kinds of things in there?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's in the right direction for sure. The other thing that you can do is there's a product called aluminum sulfate, and that gives you an instant acidification. And it doesn't last a long time, but it will literally instantly acidify. And so you just follow the label directions and the mixing and the ratios. It's just like a fertilizer you mix with water, and then you water the whole area, like about a 2 foot by 2 foot area around the plant. And then, you can also get a little bit of pelletized sulfur, which gives you the long, slow-releasing acidifying effect.
So what do you recommend? Which one?
Both. Yeah, so that you get the instant effect to save the plant's life and potentially get it on the road to recovery, and then the longer, slow-releasing just to maintain the acidity.
And do I get that down at ArtNat?
Yes, they do sell both the products. Yeah, you ask for pelletized sulfur, and it usually comes in a small box, and also aluminum sulfate. Just get the smallest amount you can get.
Awesome. I just want you to know that I got a gas plant. I think I wrote to you about that.
Ooh, dictamnus.
And I was out planting it yesterday. I'd left it in the garden for a couple of days. Do you know what? Because it was hot and my arm brushed against it, I had a rash down my arm from that darn plant.
Interesting.
Well, evidently it's an irritant with sunlight, which goes to show you I should have planted it when it was cloudy.
Those plants can be powerful, Ariel.
Yeah. Have you ever seen one?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. I'm gonna start one. So I've got one. So.
They're still considered quite rare. You don't see a lot of them around. And I think as gardeners, when I first got a gas plant the first time, I was like, very careful with it and everything. And it lived for years and years and years. And then I moved away, and that was it. But it was a pretty cool plant.
Well, and you know what? For the price of $25, which is what it costs, it better survive.
Yes. Well.
Ariel, you're jumping into new territory, and I like that.
Right.
Okay, we're gonna have to move on. Take care. Appreciate it.
Bye,
Okay.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Now, are we going to be able to take Harold, or are we going to have to take a break? We're going to take a break. Harold, just hang in there, buddy, and we will be back with more AM 1150 Garden Show. And we want to talk to a very patient Harold. Good morning, Harold.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
I have a fir tree. I believe it's a blue spruce, and every year it gets a borer or whatever you want to call it in the leading top edge or top branches, which I've had to cut off year after year after year. And I'm wondering, how early in the spring should I be cutting this thing off?
I'm going to I want to break in here because you said you had a fir.
Yeah.
And then you said you had a blue spruce.
Well,
and what
I don't know which it is.
Well, it'll be a blue spruce. It'll be a spruce, a Poinsettia.
Yep.
But also, what you got there is a white pine weevil.
Yeah,
So,
just to add confusion.
Who would know? Who would know, eh? Anyway, it's a white pine weevil. And Ken, you were going to talk a little bit about that. Sorry to butt in.
No, that's great. Yeah, for sure. White pine weevil is also known as terminal weevil, so that affects the tip of the shoot. The little beetle generally flies around, and what it's looking for is new growth. So it's looking for that nice, beautiful, soft, new shoot that comes out in the springtime. So when that new shoot comes out, especially at the top of the tree, this shoot is nice and soft and lush. And then the beetle lands on it, and it starts to lay eggs either on or in, actually injecting the egg actually in beside each needle. What happens then is the egg hatches, and of course there are little grubs in there, and the little grubs do their thing, and they hollow out the inside of the shoot. The shoot will melt or bend over and wilt, and then it obviously dries up, and they'll take off a good chunk at the top of the tree. So generally what happens is as soon as you see the first sign of the tip of that tree just starting to bend a little bit, it's time to go and cut it out. So that's generally the timing. If you leave it too long until it all dies off and everything, then they've already flown the coop and they're off doing it again, right?
Okay.
So you're trying to capture them while they're in there. And then when you do cut out and remove that, always open up the stems with a knife or even a pair of clippers and just open it up and look and make sure that you see those little white grubs in there.
Yeah, I have done that.
Yeah. Have you been able to remove them
while they're alive? Each year I remove them, not a problem. The only thing is that the tree is now about 12, 14 feet high. It's getting a damn flat top on it.
Yeah.
Because every year I have to cut it off. Now, I have some spray, which is called Wilson's Borer Killer.
Well, that'll work. I'm going to read you. I'm going to read you what my sheet says.
Yeah.
Colorado blue spruce and occasionally others such as Alberta spruce may suffer from attacks of this weevil, which feeds on the terminal leader and causes a heavy flow of sap. The larvae cause much injury by boring within the terminal leader, tunneling downward and inward. Their work is manifested in July by the wilting and dying of the new terminal growth. Holes can be seen in the bark with some sap leakage. The leader is usually killed and the tree stunted. Control. Not easy to control. Cut off and destroy all infested leaders as soon as the damage, the wilting new growth is noticed, is what Ken was saying. Make cuts well below the points where the grubs are present. Protect the leader by spraying in early spring when buds are swelling. And I'm saying malathion. I believe it's still on the market now. Malathion hasn't been removed yet. 7 is gone, but malathion I think is still there. Spraying with malathion. To replace the leader, tie the next lower lateral to a stick and then tie the stick back to the main stem to try and get that new leader so it'll get rid of that crew cut look. Cut away all other laterals in the immediate vicinity of the one tied to the stick.
Oh.
I can send you that sheet if you like.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. What about putting this borer killer I have and spraying it?
It's so old. Whether it would be effective or not, I'm not sure. I had some old latex that I was trying to get control of some spider mite, and it didn't work. It's worn out.
Yeah, is that Lindane?
Lindane is in the borer spray. Yeah. And I don't know. It may be just past its best date or whatever.
Yeah, and I don't think it's totally legal to use it either, which is something you have to think about a little bit. But I would say, that it's just a tough thing with spruces, and you got to try your best. But man,
I on that legal thing, Ken, I talked to what's her name, Yvonne.
Yeah,
she said that it's the best way to use up old to get rid of old pesticides in a way is to use them. Yeah. And so it's not illegal to use it. It's just illegal to sell it. We can't. It's no longer on the market. It hasn't been for years. That's why I'm saying it might not have any clout.
Yeah,
but it was a good one. That's the one we used to recommend. That used to be on my sheet.
Yeah. All righty. I thank you very much. Yeah. I guess I'll just have to watch it and do the thing I've been doing for years, except that I'm getting a little peed off with the fact that this thing is stunted now.
But the other thing is, try that. Creating a new leader. But the other thing is, I have seen on the golf course for 5, 6, 7, 8 years there was white pine weevil, and all of a sudden, now I don't think they were doing anything to mitigate the problem. It just stopped coming. Nature kind of just unraveled the natural. Whatever happens, maybe they get diseased or something. I'm not sure the little guys, but the trees are fine now. But at one time they were all affected, and I'd noticed that every Wednesday afternoon at men's night, and then all of a sudden, a few years later, it was fine. So
this has been going on probably for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. Well, it might come full circle, but. Try, if you want to send for my sheet, I'll send you that.
All righty. Thank you much.
Right on.
Yep. Good luck.
Right. Thanks.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, boy, that's a tough
borer
bug.
ones, borers, like you've said many times, Ken, are the toughest thing to deal with. Whether it's pine borer, whether it's peach borer,
whatever it is, yeah.
They're not.
They come from all different sources. Some are beetles, and some are weevils, and some are moths.
Yeah.
There's a whole assortment of different
clear
things.
wing moths.
Yeah, but boy, they are tough to deal with. That's for sure.
And they're kind of insidious too. You don't realize things are going on unless you know what you're talking about. Yeah,
and that problem is very common. I mean, it affects spruces all over the place. It's amazing, and you'll see. I remember seeing a whole row, a hedgerow, somebody planted, and it was quite long, like 500 feet long. Every single one. Every single tree had it, and you can just tell it's just perpetuating, and they're just living there. The permanent living site. But yeah, it's sad.
Well, that's the way nature is, and if you want to live a little closer to nature, and you're wanting to be part of a community, and you're retired, and you want to just sort of let things kind of go, so you can. Not be looked after, but have a little bit of independent living, however, be under one community roof. The Regency Retirement Center is being built on KLO, and I've been doing the landscape design for it, having interesting time there. And the thing that sets it aside is, Ken, it's got a 2 or 3 acre walking path through a natural reserve it's riparian, and we weren't able to landscape that portion, but it's a huge major part of the property. And you go across this walking bridge, and down into this pathway, and it goes all through. You almost want to take your fishing rod because there's a couple little ponds in there. And then there's a putting green, and there's a bocce court, and it's really, really quite a neat place. And that's open for business right now. The Regency, they're doing a good job there. Now, I want to just give a shout-out to my Auntie Kay. She lives in a Regency resort, a retirement resort, and Auntie Kay is my mom's sister. I've mentioned her many times, but she is a wonderful person, been a teacher all her life as a professional, and she's doing very well. 99 this year, 99 years young, and awesome. She is doing very, very well. And I just want to say hello, Auntie Kay. That's what I do every Saturday morning.
Yeah.
250-862-2525 to get through to us. Ken, I guess we should take a short break.
I believe we should.
Yep, we're going to take a short break, and we'll look forward to your calls when we come back with more AM 1150 Garden. We're back with you, and as usual, on Saturday mornings, we look forward to hearing from our friend Dan Bruce, and he is on the air, and I have no idea what he's going to talk about, but, I think I know a little bit of what he's going to talk about, but I'll let him do that talking. Morning, Dan.
Good morning, Don and Ken.
Good morning, Dan.
Well, I had a little bit of an adventure yesterday, cleaning the fiberglass roof of the veranda, and just got to the last finishing touches, and I put my foot where it should not have been, and now I have a hole in the roof.
Oh.
Now, did you fall through the roof, or did you just put your foot through it?
I put my foot through it, and then about half of my body followed the foot, and then I hung up on a 2x4.
Jeepers.
Good thing you're young and strong, Dan.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So you need some repair work.
Yes, that is due to take place right away.
But that's interesting. That was fiberglass. That's that corrugated fiberglass, right?
Yes.
Well, is it? I guess it must be 40 years old.
Well, it was put there in 1985.
Yeah, so it's getting close to 40 years old. Well, we had that same fiberglass material on the garden center, and we put the first roof up in 1969 was when that first part of the garden center was built, and it was still there in 1997. So 69 to 97, that's 30 years.
Yeah.
30 years. But, 40-year-old fiberglass, can get a little bit rough. Mm-hmm. What have you got on your mind today, Dan? You talked to me the other day about a peony that was a seedling peony.
We have a number of tree peonies, or had a number of tree peonies in the garden. And, of course, they occasionally set seed. And some years ago, in fact about 7 years ago, a seedling appeared growing in a rock wall. I didn't do anything about it, I just left it there. And this year, for the first time, it set a bud. And I thought, well, this is going to be a seedling, so judging by the nearest tree peony, it's not going to be very spectacular or very interesting. But I was wrong. This looks very much like the famous tree peony, Joseph Rock, which is white, large white with purple maroon brush marks right in the center around the yellow anthers. So, yeah, it is quite spectacular.
So you just got the one bloom?
Just the one.
Wow, beautiful, eh? Wow.
And I have a sort of photograph of it, but when I tried to photograph it yesterday, the sun had gone off of it for about 20 minutes, half an hour, so the flower was beginning to close up. Got to wait for today.
Well, the ideal time, of course, is when it's clouded over to get a good photograph. But as far as the peony goes, the sunnier it is, the more open it is, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Now you're going to name it. You're going to name it the Dan Bruce peony?
Oh, I don't know anything about that. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, in 1835, in Dunfermline, Scotland, a little boy was born. He was christened Andrew, presumably after the patron saint of Scotland. And he finally passed away in 1913. But he made quite an impression on the world. And his surname was Carnegie.
And was he anything to do with Carnegie Hall?
Quite a lot.
Okay. Here it is, all tying together here.
So he ended up leaving Scotland and emigrating to the United States, where he did a number of things very carefully and very wisely. He essentially controlled the steel industry at a time when it was really important, and became very wealthy. He was especially concerned about education, not only his own, but that of the public. And his sort of, one of his little philosophical lines was that you should, at a young age, get all the education you can, and then in middle age you should get as much money as you can, and then later on you can give that money away. Mm-hmm. In a good cause.
Sounds like a plan. Does he have my address?
Well, you're a bit too late.
Oh, okay. Okay.
In today's a rough sort of guesstimate, today's money, Andrew Carnegie gave away something like $76 billion.
Ooh. Now, how does this tie in with gardening?
Well, he founded about 3,000 libraries around the world.
Oh, my goodness.
And Carnegie Hall and all of that stuff. Two very, very large natural organisms are named in his honor. The largest cactus in the world is the saguaro from Arizona, New Mexico. Mm-hmm. And everybody has seen pictures of them if you haven't actually seen one. Mm-hmm. These are giant cacti. They live for hundreds of years and grow up in a tall column which then branches and has clusters of white trumpet-shaped flowers eventually, but they have to be of some age before they will get doing that. Mm-hmm. Needless to say, Carnegia gigantea, which is the scientific name,
really,
is now under considerable, intense threat because of development in that part of the world. And also the cactus nappers who will go out and dig these things up and transplant them, sell them to landscapers and other nefarious people.
This is why Ken is consistently saying, don't be going out and digging wild plant material, because that's what can happen. All of a sudden,
right.
We go, oh, there it goes.
Mm-hmm. Moving a full-sized Carnegia is a major undertaking, and the chances of the thing surviving the move are almost nil.
Yeah.
But there are people down there who have lots of money and who care not. Mm-hmm. They want one in their front garden.
Yep.
So if, like an annual, if it lasts for a year or two, then they'll just go get another one.
Sure. And actually the movie industry was very hard on these things, because where Western movies were being made, these things were expected, and at the movie set there wasn't one, so they went and got one.
Right.
Just cut it down and propped it up, and when the movie was finished, everybody just walked away, and the Carnegie lay dying on the ground.
Oh my God! Look at what's the other plant? We got to move on here, Dan, but what's the other plant named after Carnegie?
The other thing is not a plant.
Oh, okay.
It is Diplodocus carnegii, one of the largest dinosaurs that ever trod the earth.
Ooh. That's interesting. So he was quite a character.
He was quite a character.
As are most of the people that you bring forward here, and we appreciate that. That's very cool to every week to have some interesting story about an interesting person that is around.
Yes, and don't forget that he was a Scot. And Fintry was founded by a Scot.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Don't mess with him.
Yeah. Yeah, the Laird of Fintry.
Okay.
Dan, thank you so much, buddy. Appreciate it.
All right.
We'll hear from you again.
Probably next week.
Yeah, right on. Okay, Dan. Take care.
Thanks very much, Dan. Take care.
Right. Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah.
Carnegie. What a name. Dan, or Ken, my first memory of anyone named Carnegie, Mr. Carnegie, I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, 7 or 8 or 9, hanging out with Dad always at the nursery. And a Mr. Carnegie was our salesman, the person who sold us a product called Blue Whale.
Right.
And Blue Whale came in a liquid form, and it came in a dry form. Peat moss, it was just like a bale of peat moss with little specks of white in it, and that was bits of whale meat.
Jeepers.
It was it was in the days of actually going and whaling, right?
Right.
It was a whale of a business and a whale of a sin that we committed to the environment and whatnot. Poor whales. But anyway, he would drive in with a Volkswagen Bug, a Beetle.
Right.
Loaded to the hilt with bags of Blue Whale. And in the front trunk, he had all the liquid Blue Whale.
Oh.
And he would bring it all the way from Vancouver.
Wow.
Simpler days, Ken. I mean, who would ever do that in a Volkswagen Beetle?
Yeah.
Deliver all that stuff.
Surprised it even made it.
Yeah.
I guess they were pretty tough little vehicles.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
For sure.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, before we take a break, we've got Pat joining us. Good morning, Pat.
Hi, Don. I found some Tiger 90 tucked way back in my shed that I must have purchased for something at some point in my life.
Yep.
It's a pelletized sulfur. Is that correct? I haven't opened the box.
That's right. It's what Ken was talking about earlier on. Yep.
I know, and that's what made me think, oh, yes, this box, I must phone. So I am assuming I purchased it for my blueberries, which have been suffering of late. And actually, one of my most prolific bushes has had hardly any blooms on it at all this year. Can this be incorporated by applying this Tiger 90?
Like with any product, you want to make sure you're following some direction on it. Don't be overdoing it because it can.
That's why I'm calling.
Yeah, Ken, on the Tiger 90, would you suggest a tablespoon sprinkled around, like salt and pepper around the base of the plant would be adequate?
Yeah, I would say that you just need to spread it out farther. And remember that it's super slow releasing. And I mean so slow it can take a month or 2 months to really start doing anything. And so,
but at least it's there.
At least it's there, and that's your long-term, slow-releasing sulfur. So
Good.
I would try to cover an area about 30 inches in diameter for each plant. And then, and how much, this is the thing, is we always say each little pellet needs to be about 1.5 inches to 2 inches apart, somewhere in that range. And that just tells you how light you're applying it. It's very light.
Very light.
Yeah. You could even go 3 inches apart.
It's like seasoning.
It's like, very small amount. And those little pellets will last for sometimes a year or two.
Okay.
But I was also mentioning, I think it was Ariel that was calling in asking about that. There's a faster way. I mean, I always like to use that sulfur as my long-term acidifying effect, but I also would use the aluminum sulfate, which is another product that you pick up that's water-soluble.
Yes.
And what this does is it instantly acidifies the soil. So you just follow the label directions, mix it with water, and you water all that same 30-inch area for each plant. And you could even go up to 3 feet if you wanted to, because those roots are going to spread out, and they don't like to grow in that alkaline soil like we have here. So, I would say you do both is what you do.
Yeah, and if I have a 4-liter watering can with water soluble, I actually have some acidifier that I bought for some evergreens a while ago.
Okay, yeah.
Assuming it's the same thing
Yeah.
that I can use on my blueberries, would that not be true?
You would have to read the label directions because what I'm talking about is specifically aluminum sulfate.
Okay.
And so it's a specific product. You might be thinking the evergreen food. It's acidifying. Mirror acid is one of the products they used to have in a blue box, and it was acidifying for evergreens. And it does acidify a little bit, but it's not quite as intense as the aluminum sulfate.
That's 30-10-10, and so you're feeding a lot of nitrogen, which is good, but it's not going to help with fruit production.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Aluminum sulfate.
Yep.
There you go.
The one.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks
Pat.
very much, gentlemen.
Thank you for joining us. Yep, you betcha.
Yep, bye.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
We're going to have to take that short break, and we'll be back with more AM 1150 Garden Show. Well, Ken, Aquilegia, common name, columbine.
Yes.
When you think of it, columbine, there we go. Well, since we got all these beautiful plants from our friend Helen last spring, I only owned one columbine prior to that, and it was a little double pink. And I bought it because years ago I thought, gee, that's an interesting thing, a double columbine. And it's like Donna bought the little calabricoa. She got a couple of doubles this year. So it's always fun to have a double flower. And but I'll bet you we've got maybe half a dozen, maybe more, different varieties. There's one with a blossom on it that's 1.5 inches, 2 inches in diameter, and then there's another one that might be 3/8 of an inch in diameter, like
it's tiny.
centimeter, just
Wow.
a tiny little thing. And
cool?
One of them is in our rock garden, and it stands 3.5 feet tall, with long stems coming up, and then a whole whack of the blooms hanging on each one of those stems.
Nice.
And the other thing I've discovered about Aquilegia, fabulous cut flower.
Yeah, it lasts.
They hold up in water so well.
Yeah, they're really tough. But you sent me the picture of that white and red one, and
That's the big one. That's the big one. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thing. Beautiful.
That's one from Helen. But and we got a little blue one there. Actually, we got 2 plants of that. Everything we got from Helen was dwarf,
Right.
pretty much dwarf. The big tall 3-footer was not dwarf, but the flowers themselves were tiny, right?
Oh, okay.
And we're having so much fun watching stuff come up.
Maybe you want
now.
to collect some of those seeds because they are known to come from seed. But it'll be interesting to see if you get some seed.
Well, I know. The double comes true.
Yeah.
The double one, and you'd think it would be a hybrid being a double and all that, but it comes true to seed, the seedlings that spread around. Yeah. And it's not that weedy. I mean, some things are a little bit seedy, then other things are awfully seedy, and you don't want them around.
It's sort of it's a medium to not so seedy. It does some variety. I find that some of the just the regular mixes, like when you buy Aquilegia mix, that they tend to seed around. But they're such a non-invasive plant. They just kind of shoot up here and there. They don't take up a lot of space, and they're always sort of cheerful.
Yeah. And the foliage holds up fairly well, even after the blooms have done. They don't get, not like your bleeding hearts. I find the bleeding heart kind of, the foliage itself is not. Really
when I used to take care of a large garden where there was a lot of Aquilegias shooting up here and there and everywhere. And all we would do is after they would be done their bloom, we would just take the entire plant, and some of them got to be quite big, actually, about 2-3 feet across. But we would go in and grab bunches of the foliage stems and everything and just whap it off, just cut it off. And then you'd get these new leaves that would come up, and you'd get this nice little healthy-looking, leafy little mound that would live there. And it was fine. It was
nice.
Beautiful, yeah.
Ken, that brings up a point. Our dear, dear person, Doris Hodge, who worked with us from about 1963 on, and she started she was our first perennial person that
yes, yeah.
she managed our perennial department. That was the first person we had, sort of, that's your job.
Mm-hmm.
And she really got that going, and I learned, Arabis, Aquilegia, all the right from the whole alphabet of.
Well, that was the genius part, which seemed because when I joined up with Burnetts, I didn't really know anything about perennials, but what was really helpful in learning was having them all alphabetized down that row, down the perennial section. And then you knew that the A's, B's, C's, and they're all by the botanical name. So it was just genius. And that's one of the things I would just highly recommend for any garden centers anywhere is always alphabetize your perennial selection, and it makes it easy for people to find the plants and easy to organize them and whatnot. It's a must, I would say.
And that was between Doris and my mom.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Doris taught me just what you said with the Aquilegia. After your perennials finish blooming, most of them, you can cut them back. Yep. And they'll either come on with beautiful foliage and for getting ready for their energy for next year, or they'll rebloom.
Yes.
They'll bloom again. A lot of them will bloom again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Many of them do. Some of them don't.
Yep.
Many of them do.
Yep.
The Aquilegia doesn't typically, but it might occasionally.
Yeah, a little.
But yeah,
sprout here and there.
Yeah.
But I've just a new relationship with Aquilegia because of all these beauties in the yard.
Well, save me some seed if you get some. I would love to try some to see if they come true. It would be an experiment.
The little guys. Well, I'll see what I can do. I'll save some seed. Plant. Yeah. I'll grow them. Oh, speaking of which, a lot of folks have been on my list of people that want the Bella Monte tomato plant. They are ready. I'm not going to be around today, so I can't accept your visit to Burnett's greenhouse today, but tomorrow, Sunday, from noon on, if any one of you are listening, I am going to be contacting people. I've got the list of people that have them ordered, and the plants are looking fine and ready to plant in the garden. So,
I would love to get a Carmen cucumber seed from you, just a single seed, if there's such a thing.
All I've got left, I've got a little flat of 3 seedlings started. They're just like that. So I'll put your name on one, Ken.
Sure. That would be great. I know they produce like crazy.
Oh, they do. I'm having a little trouble with root disease. They're very subject to root disease, it seems. I just can't seem to get them. Anyway, we're working on that issue.
Yep.
It's a matter of the watering and the non-watering, so getting that rhythm getting down. Well, we're getting close to the end of the first half of the show. I want to remind people that we're here for another hour right after this, talking gardening. And the phone number to get through, if you want to join us, is 250-862-2525. And like I say, we're here every Saturday morning from 8 till 10. And just enjoy every minute of it. Ken and I start trading notes, and we learn from each other. We learn from the folks that phone in, and hopefully they learn something from us. And I've often said it's just like in the backyard, talking to your neighbor across the back fence and chatting about gardening. And it's a great thing.
Yeah, it's just really nice that everybody gets an opportunity to learn from the people who do phone in. All the questions are very viable and important information. And, there's no question that's too easy or too difficult. They're all good, and they really stimulate discussion, which really helps everybody.
And one last note before we take the break is I now have 5 of those beans that I planted way too early.
Oh.
5 are up.
5 are up.
So Stokes said that if you plant them too early, the bean seeds will rot. I don't think any of them rotted. I think I planted a dozen, and I got 5 plants coming up. Right. Those 5 plants are adjacent to one another. I think the quail got the others because they were digging in it.
Oh, you're going to blame the quail.
Oh, yeah. The most right after I finished planting them.
Poor little quail.
The dirt got all dug up. You could tell the quail were in there.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm sure they ate the remaining. There's 5 up. I had a dozen, so that's 7. They ate 7 seeds.
Well, Wendy did an amazing thing the other day. So she was going to get the beans started, And so we put them in a tray, like a 1206, so six packs, and put one seed in each six pack. And then we put it half onto the heated pad. And those beans just, bam, every single one of them shot up, and they're just beautiful and tall on the heated side. So we switched it around and put the other side on the heat, and bam, they just came
magic.
up. It was like magic, and they're beautiful, already about 6 inches tall.
Best investment a gardener can have is a little jiffy pad, heating pad. On that note, we're going to take our break for the news and invite you to call us when we come back with more AM 1150 Garden. Well, we're back on a sunny Saturday morning, and boy, if you're not out in the garden today, there's something wrong with you. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't know. It's not seriously wrong with you, but something's wrong. Because
it's just glorious. It's unbelievable. 27 now they said today, and 28 or 29 tomorrow. Like, that's pretty hot. You got to watch those new plants, and plants that are going outside that have never seen the sun before will be incinerated. So, like, if you can put an umbrella over them or something, to break that sun, because it's, they're fine with it, but they have to adapt to it gradually. So that's the big thing.
Yeah, even a sun-loving plant like a tomato could turn white if you put it out in this, if it's been inside. Even when they've been in the greenhouse, Ken, and you put them outside in this hot sun without any protection, they can turn white.
Yeah,
geraniums turn white.
Anything, even like a cactus. When plants are growing indoors or even in a greenhouse, they have their leaves are adapted to that much light, and usually it's less than what you would see outside. Typically. So what happens is the leaf grows very thin and weak, and there's a chemical inside the leaf that actually acts as a sunscreen, and that chemical basically just becomes non-existent when you're inside of a house, because they don't want to prevent the sun from coming in at all. They want to maximize the amount of light that reaches the chlorophyll so that they can function normally. So that's what they're trying to do. And, of course, it takes maybe a couple weeks for that chemical to build up and start to act as like an interior sunscreen. And also the epidermis, the upper layers of the leaf, have to kind of grow either stronger or thicker. Any new leaves that are born into the full sun are fine. They're used to it, and so they're born into it, so they're prepared. But any leaves that were from the inside can just be burned right off a plant. So we got to watch for that. And when it's hot like this, that's when it's going to show up.
Yeah. Well, and we always talk about hardening off the plants for coldness, but you got to harden them off for the sun too.
Absolutely,
much so.
Yeah. So I always find a little bit of a shady spot, or under a tree where there's sort of dappled light, so a little bit of the sun actually comes through between the leaves, and that sort of gives that plant a gradual introduction to full sun. And still, it's got to live for about a week in those dappled conditions before it goes out into full sun. It all depends on the plant. Typically smaller plants, that's where I like we were just talking about cucumbers. I really like to just plant the seed literally right in the ground, and then it just pops up, and it's exposed to that full sun right away, and it's just happy, and away it goes. I love that. It's like a zucchini. Like, just put the seed in the hole, and it just grows. But the other thing I'm sure we'll be talking about as we do talk about different pests and things that come up in the garden is protecting those little seedlings from things like the climbing cutworm, which is our arch enemy in the garden. We just can't stand those little cutworms, and they love to get the seedlings and chop them off at the ground level, and it's just a sad.
Why they're called cutworms, Ken.
Exactly. A little cup. Just take one of those plastic cups that you would get, from a plastic beer cup that you buy at the dollar store. Chop the bottom off. Push it into the ground and put your seedlings in that cup so they can root out through the bottom, and you will not get any cutworms on your beans or whatever the plants are.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I still haven't figured out what's getting on my radishes, but we've harvested all the first run of radishes, so I didn't do the old sift the soil, which is a great idea, Ken. I haven't done that. There's only time for so much in this life.
That's right.
And sifting soil out in the garden, looking for whatever's eating the radishes, is not priority right now.
Exactly.
15 hours and 25 minutes long. today.
It's getting there.
Yep.
Yeah, there's not much more to go.
Not
About
much
another
more to go.
30 minutes, right?
Yep. And 22 hours and 8 hours and 5 minutes was the shortest day. The longest days coming up is 16 hours and 21 minutes long.
Oh, so it's a little
So
more
we're right.
than a half
We're right.
hour.
They're not even an hour to go yet. But as we get towards that June 22nd, it slows up, and the differences each day are very minimal. But so right now we're pretty much, we're there. We're there.
Much, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got the nice long days, and we're very much enjoying our backyard right now with all the color coming up, and our little fire pit, and just hanging out there, and got the workshop, the lathe working now. Got the metal lathe working.
Yeah,
and,
very nice.
Yeah, no, we're really, really enjoying. But of course, I'm awfully busy too, so trying to keep everything going and still stay busy and have some fun at the same time. Potatoes. I've got potatoes coming up all over the place. I got some in a little wooden bin that I made. I've got some in some big, huge pots that I got from you, the big tree pots of 25-gallon pots or whatever they are.
Yep.
And I've got some planted in my asparagus bed. Asparagus is no longer in my vocabulary, Ken.
Oh, so nothing came up.
All rotted.
Ah.
Huge, big roots, nice looking. Everything looked great, but they're just rotted. They're all rotted.
Do you think the soil was too good?
Now, well, here's the deal. I put this raised bed on top of landscape fabric, and then I put soil in. I think that had something to do with it. It wasn't draining as well as it should or something like that, because they just all rotted.
I wonder if you could just plant asparagus into straight sand or a very sandy loam, because, they, like you say, they sometimes just grow in the wild, and there's hardly any water, and the soil's poor, silty, sandy sort of soil. And
You know what turned me off? When I read on the internet, because I did a lot of research, you need about 20 asparagus plants per person who loves asparagus in the family. So we would have needed 40 asparagus plants to service Donna and I. We both love asparagus. The farmer's market is pretty handy.
Yeah.
And that area that I had asparagus in, I've now got New Zealand spinach coming up. I've got beets in there. I got more onions, some more garlic, and some potatoes, all in that one little bed. So, see you, asparagus. No more.
There you go. Well, you'll have something else growing there, and it'll be productive and happy.
Oh, yeah. No, it's going to be great. 250-862-2525 to get through to us today. I'm thinking there's no calls, so we should take that short break first and then invite your calls. Line them up, folks. 250-862-2525. We'll be back with more AM 1155. We are back with you, and we've got a full switchboard lined up here, like just a very impressive lineup. We've got Wilf. Good morning, Wilf.
Good morning.
Hello, Wilf.
Good morning.
Hey.
How are you?
Good.
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, Wilf.
Because I can't hardly hear you guys.
Oh, we'll turn it up a bit.
Okay.
We'll holler.
You were talking about asparagus.
Yep.
And it trigged my memory years ago. I did tractor work for my dad in Vernon. And so I was, I don't know what I was, 10, 12, 15 max, so 50 years ago or so. There was a 10-acre asparagus farmer, I guess, on the west side of Swan Lake.
Okay.
And it was my job to go, and I guess he figured it's time to till it down and start over. And I have never in my life, even since, seen anything like it. With a big tractor and a rototiller, you can go down easily 8 inches, 10 inches. And the root structure was like, I guess the roots are sort of white and they're long and flimsy. And they would wrap around the tines. I would have to stop every pass, sometimes 2 or 3 times, cut that stuff all out.
Oh.
And what was amazing to me is that it didn't matter. Like a few places I thought, I'm just going to go down deeper and deeper and see how far this stuff goes. I went down like 16 inches, and that's how far the roots kept going.
Okay.
And it was really porous, like in the sense that there was hundreds of mice and moles that came out. I mean, I have never seen anything like it. And the soil was quite sandy.
Okay. Well, this is answering a couple of my questions.
Well, that must be why that stuff grew so well.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Unbelievable.
Interesting.
Yeah. Interesting stuff.
That is very interesting.
There's a little history.
Yep, thank you. And actually, you've given me an idea of maybe what went wrong, because I had that landscape fabric under there. Mm-hmm. And if they want to go deep, I wasn't allowing them to go deep, and that might have been an issue. Yep. Thank you, Will.
That's what I'm thinking. Yep, you're welcome.
Okay, man.
Good information.
Okay.
Thank
you. Betcha.
You bet. Bye.
And we're going to go now to Colin. Good morning, Colin. Oh, Colin's not there. But Pam will be there. Good morning, Pam.
Good morning. I have been gifted a cafe au lait dahlia.
Ooh, nice.
In a pot. It's probably got a few inches of sprout on it right now. It looks pretty great. I have not grown dahlias in a number of years, and so I just would like a refresher on how to take this dahlia and give it its best life.
Sunny spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the way you're pronouncing dahlia, not dahlia.
Oh, I didn't know.
Well, it was named after a gentleman named Dahl, D-A-H-L. Mm-hmm. And so his name wasn't Mr. Dale, it was Mr. Dahl. Mm-hmm. So it's Dahlia. Brian Minter, of course, is all over that a few years ago. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Pam, they're pretty darned easy. I guess one thing that they can get, I've seen, especially when I'm having overwintering them in the greenhouse or whatever, if you got them growing in the greenhouse, they don't like high humidity, and they will get mildew. At least some of them will. But out in the garden, they seem to be fairly immune to that. Ken, do you know of any issue with dahlias other than just get them in the ground, give them some food, and let them grow?
They're pretty straightforward, other than earwigs love to eat them. So
earwigs
at night, at night you can go out and just see them being munched joyfully by your local earwig population. So, that's the only thing you could potentially do is maybe try to put up some sort of a little barrier around the base. But earwigs, I think, can climb over just about anything.
But earwigs are so easy to look after because you can just put a wet towel out there in the garden.
Do you know what they like better than a wet towel, though? A dahlia blossom. They get right in those beautiful blooms, and oh my God! You take a dahlia blossom and shake it out, and you get a half a gallon.
I would do it before the dahlias bloom.
Oh yes.
Put the wet towels out there as a preventative measure.
There you go.
And then just in the morning, you put them on the sidewalk out front of your place there, Pam, and do the earwig stomp.
Earwig stomp, yes. I've heard that earwigs are, aren't they partial to beer as well?
That's slugs.
Okay, the slugs do the pub night. Okay, not the earwig.
Yeah, the pub night.
Just one question. Would a dahlia do okay if the pot was large enough, or are they adverse to being in pots?
No, they'd be fine. Fine in a pot.
Okay, and what size of pot? I mean, I think it's just one tuber. It's like a 12-inch pot or something?
Well, what type of dahlia did you say you had?
I've been told it's a cafe au lait. I don't even know what that. I'm thinking it's.
Is that a large one?
It's a big flowered one. It's going to be. I think it's a medium height, but that means about 4 to 5 feet high.
You want to have a nice tub for that.
Big blossom, and you'll need to stake it as well. So sometimes people will grow them like in a tomato cage.
Yeah.
And if they're in a big pot, you need at least a 10-gallon pot. So that's a very good-sized pot. I guess it'd be about 18-inch diameter, sort of.
Okay.
And use good potting soil.
I usually have volunteer plants and just, steadfast basics. This one sounds over-the-top sophisticated, just with a name like Cafe au lait. And so I thought, I don't know if it's going to handle the culture in my yard, because we're a lot more hick around here than fancy.
You got a great garden, though. And I think the Cafe au lait is going to be just fine.
I think I'm envisioning it on my roof deck, where I can have time with it when I have my tea, even though it's cafe au lait.
Maybe there's no earwigs up there. There you go.
I don't think so. Do squirrels like dahlias? Because honestly, squirrels.
I don't think squirrels eat dahlias. No.
Because I don't know if you've ever experienced trouble with squirrels where you guys live. I don't have deer, but I've got squirrels that are just weird. Last year, I watched a squirrel decimate a Swiss chard plant in about 3 seconds.
Wow.
He did his Rocky boxing trick on it. He was actually up on the. I thought, what is that squirrel doing? I have raised beds. I'm in my kitchen when I'm looking out, and this little squirrel scrambled up on my raised bed. I thought, oh, they hop around. They're usually looking for nuts or hiding nuts or trying to figure out where the nuts are, kind of thing. So I was thinking, and all of a sudden I'm watching him. This flurry of activity, like he's on his hind legs, and his front paws are just going like bicycle wheels. And I go, what's going on? And then I see leaves flying, and he's basically shredding my Swiss chard plant. The Swiss chard plant was taller than the squirrel, but he didn't care. He just took it on. And the other day I went to pick spinach out of my raised bed before supper, and the spinach plants are maybe 8 inches high or so. They're just coming into their own, looking really good. I noticed that one of them looked like something had been kind of munching it or cutting it or something or other. I came back after supper. It was mostly gone. And I thought, okay, this is not a slug. Insects don't work this fast. I wonder if it's that squirrely squirrel back at the leafy things. I don't know. I don't know what's in his mind.
Wow.
So.
Well, there you go. Just don't be afraid of them though, because they're kind of cute.
They are kind of cute. It's my urban jungle. So okay. Well, thanks for the tip.
Thanks, Pam.
I'll get that in the pot. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for calling.
Bye-bye.
And we have joining us right now as we speak, we've got Edwin. Good morning, Edwin. No, I'm sorry. Sorry. Who's with us? Sorry.
Oh.
Hello, Paula.
Hi, this is Paula.
Yes,
Good morning,
Paula.
Ken,
now we got it straight.
And,
all this technology here, and I can't. I was looking at last week's list.
No worries. Hey, listen, I've got a different question for you. We have got an RV lot along the Shuswap River out by Enderby.
Oh, nice.
And we've got a lovely grass area in our lot, but we're having trouble really with getting the grass to fill in and grow. It's really sparse. The lawn is under some beautiful mature cedar trees. And I'm wondering if the seeds and leaves that drop off of those cedars are hurting the lawn.
Well,
and what kind of fertilizer we should use.
It's sounding like it's fairly shaded.
Somewhat, but it gets some good sun too.
It does, eh?
In the afternoons. And
Well, those cedars, these are Western red cedars,
yes,
the big native cedars.
Beautiful, yeah.
They have a tremendous, and I mean tremendous, root system spreading out far and wide from that cedar. And those roots aren't just deep underground roots. A lot of them are interacting with the surface because that's what cedars do. That's what roots of trees do. And so that creates the competition that's there that is probably affecting the success rate of your lawn because it's the competitiveness of the large organism, the cedar. In the bush, out in the forest, you'd never see lawn or meadow around cedars. It's always forest litter and whatnot around these large trees, whether it be cedars or pines or spruce or whatever. A lot of people will blame they think it's acidity that the cedar is putting down and causing the issue.
We were wondering.
But I honestly believe it's just plain competition. So maybe, I don't know what your feeding schedule is on the lawn. I don't know what your soil is like. If hopefully it's sandy.
Not great. We need to top dress it, I think.
Right. And you want to, before you go to top dressing, you may want to look a little deeper than that. And because sometimes it's just beyond help and you almost have to press the restart button and peel off 2 or 3 inches of soil and bring in some nice sandy loam and fire it up again.
Okay.
Because if it's heavy ground, if it's clayish, and I don't know what the ground is like around the Shuswap River, but if it's clayish, that's a big deal. As you know, or you might know, golf courses use a tremendous amount of sand on the golf course. The greens are absolutely straight sand.
Yeah.
And but the fairways, I mean, Kelowna Golf Country Club, you see those big loads of sand lined up every spring. They put 20 truckloads of sand on that golf course every spring. And
interesting.
If anybody
so the
knows
really
what,
like the sand,
because it creates those air pockets in sand, and thus water pockets, and osmosis or not osmosis, but surface tension will keep that moisture in amongst the sand. A lot of times, and I way back, I thought, oh no, sand is no good because it drains too much and you can't. But sand is very important. So
what you might have to do is go dig a hole and have a look and see what you've got.
We will do that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And then the feeding program, lots of feeding. Over. But don't spend a lot of time aerating and top dressing if you haven't got anything to work with.
Right. Okay.
That's a long-term thing, yes. Over many applications and years, you could probably amend that soil, but sometimes you want to do it faster than that and just as I often say, press the restart button.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. This is our first year here, our first season, so we don't really know a lot of the history, but that helps.
Well, congratulations, though. That sounds like a nice place to kind of retreat to.
Thank you. It is.
Okay.
Okay.
You betcha.
Take
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And on the Shuswap River, they'll see the salmon run. This fall. I had the opportunity a few years ago to see the most major sockeye salmon run in the last 50 years. You could practically walk on their backs, Ken. It was just so, it was amazing. Anyway, we're going to take a short break here. It's the bottom of the hour. We got another half hour left of the show. Give us a call, 250-862-2525, and we'll be back with more AM 1150 Garden. Yep, we're back, and it is a beautiful Saturday morning, and as we all appreciate the fact that summer and spring is here, stuff is coming up in the gardens, everything seems to be happy. We could use some more rain, and I mean it. I want it to pour. I'm going to take my shirt off, only my shirt, and I'm going to go out when it rains, and it's going to be just fabulous because I'm going to just stand there and just let it pour down on me.
Yeah. Well, it was raining pretty good the other day, at least where I was. It rained not bad, but still not long enough. It needs to rain for like a week.
In Vancouver, they would have called that a spit.
Yeah.
It was spitting.
Yeah. It hardly got the ground wet, but it gave me
we got a taste of it, Ken, and I just said, come on, bring it on. But it just...
I think they're saying, what do they say? They're saying that by Tuesday, we're going to probably get a little bit of rain, but then it's going to diminish for the rest of the week. It could be just a little bit cloudy from time to time. 30% chance of rain in Kelowna is like, might as well be zero, because that just means that somebody somewhere throughout the valley might get a sprinkle. Yeah. So it's not much, right?
No.
But 60-70%, then you're probably going to get a bit of rain, but no guarantees.
And hopefully we'll get some in June. June is usually the wettest month of the year in the Okanagan. So we really do need to get that June rain. The problem is, of course, you get June rain, you might get June thunder too, and with June thunder, you got June lightning.
Exactly.
And I just don't want a smoky summer. We've had a couple of summers, very, very clear summers, which has been great. The summer 3 years ago was so smoky, it was awful. Yeah. And I'd forgotten, lasted so long that I'd forgotten what it was like to have clean air.
Yeah.
And so,
you almost get used to it,
and
which
the
is
forest,
sad.
No, and we had a lot of forest fires going on, and it was terrible devastation.
Yeah. So we need the rain. What we need is a week of rain, and then a couple thunder showers, because then that'll dump the volume, right? And then it can turn into July, and we're good to go. We
Get it wet first, wet it down, then have your thunder.
Because you know how the earth becomes really parched and dry. It actually repels water, and that's where you get actually sometimes runoff or flooding. You know, that happens down in the southern U.S., the washes, which are just these basically rivers that run whenever it rains because the water will not soak into the earth. It just repels it. It's like throwing water into a bowl of flour. It just repels. It doesn't want to stick.
That's a
and
good
it
analogy.
just rolls off the surface, right? Yeah, and we get the same thing here.
Water into a bowl of flour.
Yeah.
Now, I am really enjoying our smoke tree.
Oh, yes, you have a Catinus.
Catinus cagrigia, and it is a purple-leafed one.
Yep.
And it was just a seedling that arrived in the garden.
Just popped up out of nowhere.
And I grew it into a tall stem. I took all the side shoots off and grew it into a stem. I now have a tree.
Yeah.
And for folks who are looking for a small tree, don't be too afraid of getting a top-grafted something or train a smoke tree up.
Yeah, a shrub. Use a large shrub as a small tree. Yeah,
because really, there's not a lot of, there's a few small trees. One of them is the globe maple. Mm-hmm. I grafted on a Norway maple stock years ago some globe maples from Byland's globe maples they have out in front there, and I grew a few of them, maybe 5 or 6 of them, gave them away over the years, and the only one I know of that where the location is Don Stoltz in his backyard.
Oh, yes.
And everybody that sees that tree, they said, "Oh, you must have to prune that all the time." No, Don says, I never touched it, and it's a gorgeous thing.
Yeah, that's the beauty of getting the right tree for the right spot, and those particular varieties are a little hard to come by, but I think they're coming back into favor now. There is
a list of small trees for small places that I have, if anybody's interested. Mm-hmm. We've got Stuntman Steve joining us, and I really am glad to have you with us this morning, Stuntman.
Well, good morning, Don and Ken. How are you both?
Excellent.
Doing well, thanks. Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you 2 things. We are trying out zucchini, growing zucchini for the first time.
Oh, nice.
And it's coming up quite nicely. We used a lasagna tray, 2 of them, got them all cleaned out, and we put the potting soil in there and put the little seedlings, the seeds in there. Mm-hmm. And I'll be darned and so happy 2 weeks later, they're going crazy. And I was just wondering, we've been keeping them inside. Mm-hmm. We have an area where we get some sun in, and we have a counter space, and that's where we've been putting the 2 trays with them. So we got about, I would say, a total of about 10. Mm-hmm. No, I'll make that about 9. My wife just corrected me. When should I move them out to our bigger outdoor gardening lot where we're growing all our other wonderful...
I've got a couple of observations and comments here. First of all, has the lasagna tray got drainage?
No.
Well, you better be careful, Steve, because that's a no-no.
Okay.
That's lesson number 1 for gardeners, drainage.
Holes.
So important. So you got to drill some holes in your lasagna tray to give it some drainage. But the next time. But I think by now you can carefully lift those out and put them in a proper pot with some good potting soil.
And my wife is just saying that if I look over, she did that yesterday, and they look really happy in there.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Okay, but here's the deal. How many zucchinis do you need?
Well, Elena makes this killer zucchini, pasta zucchini cheese dish, and it's just off the hook. And anyways, we love zucchini.
I know, but one plant is generally all the zucchinis a family needs.
Don, and can you taught me to give when you grow the gifts?
Okay,
so I'm going to give some away. Don't you worry. Actually, we're going to give a couple of they're not seedlings anymore because they're growing quite rapidly. We're going to give them to some of the neighbors.
Oh, good for you. Now, Steve, the other thing is, another comment I have to make is that don't plunge them out into the hot sun like we talked about, hardening them off.
That.
Yeah, that's
because
really
they can turn white on you very quickly in this heat that we're having.
Yeah, you might even try this is beautiful warm weather. I would suggest that now is the time you could actually take an actual zucchini seed out and actually put it into the ground, and it'll come out up at its own rate. You're probably within a week or 2 of being able to just leave them out immediately. The weather looks great, so I think it'd be all right. But you have to just gently wean those plants into the sun, as Don was saying, really important. Nice shady area outside. I would say today's probably a good day to get them out and just say, here's the real world. Get ready.
And that's what's happening. Gosh, you guys are so good. That's what's happening right now. The wife is putting it on the kind of sunny but shady deck.
Perfect.
For the next 2 days, and we're also making a huge kind of netting to keep our deer out, because we're in the Rose Valley area and we have quite a few deer.
Right.
Our garlic and our herbs are coming up like gangbusters.
Oh, right on.
So, yeah, it's kind of nice, if I can say, for a newbie like me, to come to you pros, and you kind of like, every time I hear you guys, you're teaching me something, and that's what I love.
Well, it does grow, no pun intended, it grows on you, this whole thing. I'm just having a ball.
Started out, Don, I barely knew anything about gardening. I'm still learning, but I mean, I didn't know what the green thumb was. I thought that's something that you put in a green pie or something. I didn't know what.
Well, it's something that I ran a garden center all my life. Right through and then when we moved into our place on Rhonda, and then I started slowing down a little bit on my business activities, I started paying attention to my own garden. And so all those years, I really didn't have much of a garden, either to eat or to enjoy. And now I have a garden of Eden. And a garden of Eaton as well.
and I'm going to take you up on that offer and to visit you one day.
Oh, I'd love it.
I'd
love it.
Your talent. Yeah. And before I go, again, my bathroom orchids are blooming again.
All right.
I am just over the top. So, anyways, thanks very much for taking my call. Thanks. Keep up the great work, especially for the newbies who are just getting out there. I say don't be afraid to ask these guys questions. Call in, because that's what it's all about.
Steve,
learning
thank you.
And growing.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank
Steve.
you. Take care.
Take care.
Appreciate
Okay,
it.
bye-bye
Take
now.
care.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Old stuntman. I've known him for a few years, I'll tell you. And he's, now we've got Donna is on line 2. Good morning, Donna.
Good morning. I moved into my home late August, so I have not seen my garden, you know what I mean, come through. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, I've got lots of plants, and some I don't recognize. So I looked up one yesterday, and I think it's a type of knapweed, mountain bluet. So I'm just curious, will that keep flowering through the summer, or is it just like a spring thing?
This is a Centaurea, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a family of knapweed, right?
Yes.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Centaurea. And it's blue?
Yes, blue with little purple. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Yeah, I've got one too.
And very going or not.
Yeah, that plant is. I think it's a common name is pincushion flower.
Bachelor buttons or something?
Yeah,
one of those.
Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, you've got a lovely plant. Mm-hmm. It won't bloom all summer long. It does have its time to bloom, and I would suggest you cut it back after it finishes blooming. They do seed around a little bit. I've got one.
Yes, I've had some that I've had to pick out. Yes.
Yeah, I've got one in the garden, and periodically I'm going to have to kind of tidy up because it wants to spread the good news, you know. Mm-hmm. So, but otherwise, they're a great plant, good Okanagan plant, and as you probably will experience, I don't know what the garden, the history of the garden or whatever you have, but if it was a gardener of some sort, prior to you moving in there, you're going to see stuff happening all through the year. And I often tell people that if you're new to a property and it's an established property, spend the entire year seeing what's coming up, being careful where you walk, and just take note. If you have any queries at all, you can always take a picture and send it to Ken or myself, Ken at growercoach.com and Don at thegardenexpert.com. You can send us those pictures, and we can identify things for you and answer your questions.
Oh, that'd be
there
great.
You go.
One more question. I also bought a trumpet vine, and I read that you should plant it inside a pot with the pot bottom out because I guess it does a lot of runners.
Right.
So what kind of soil does it want to go into?
Well, Campsis radicans is the name of that plant, and that trumpet vine, I've seen some new varieties that aren't as wickedly running as the old ones. Have you, Ken?
Mm-hmm. Yep, there definitely are some. I think it's a bit of a hit and miss thing. Hard to say which is going to take off and run and which ones are not. But
sometimes in the pot, if you see the pot and it's a nursery pot and it's well established in the nursery pot, if you've got little viney things coming up on the edge of the pot,
that's a sign.
That's just a good sign that it's going to run.
You can put your hand over the top of the pot and tap the side of the pot so that the pot comes off, and you're literally holding the plant upside down in your hand. you can just check those roots. And if you see those big roots that look like they're going to be taking off and spreading, then you know you've got a spready type. But yeah, that idea of getting a large nursery pot, I would say like at least like a 15-gallon pot or bigger, and dig that into the ground, cut the bottom of that out, and put your plant in there, and you're good to go. I would say just whatever your existing surrounding soil is fine. They don't really need anything fancy.
Yeah,
they're really easily adaptable. And I always put mulch on the surface. That's sort of a key thing to keeping plants healthy. So using like the Ogo Grow product or potentially like a Nature's Gold product on the surface, that gives you a nice compost to put on the surface of the plant, and they're good to go. That's about it.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. I really appreciate your show.
Thank you,
Awesome.
and thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. Now, we're going to take one last break before the big break, and we'll answer your calls when we come back with more AM 1150. Well, Ken, I'm sitting here looking at these fine pictures that I have of my Aquilegia.
Yeah.
And I've got a renewed love affair with Aquilegia. I always liked the looks of them. They're a fascinating flower.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have a wild native Aquilegia here
Yes,
in the valley. I'd like to, at some point, get a wild one. There's a native plant farm here locally, isn't there? Or is there a couple of them?
There's a couple of them, I think, yeah.
Would they actually supply some of these native things like lupins, the native lupin?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's like anything. I think that I would imagine that their first customers would be like forestry companies, reclamation companies, that sort of thing that need plants in large volumes. I would assume that would be their top client, and I'm not sure if they do retail sales. That's the thing, but I'm sure you could go and check it out and see what they have. But it is fascinating that a lot of native plants do come through the nurseries on a regular basis. It's just sometimes we don't realize they're native, right?
Right. But I would like to have some of the lupins, some of the Aquilegia. I would like to have, of course, the Okanagan sunflower, the arrowleaf balsam root.
And you already have, you've got the fritillaria, right? The little fritillaria,
yes,
punctata.
Yes, I've got the fritillaria, and I've got a couple of orchids, a couple of native orchids.
Yeah.
And I've got, you
need to have a native plant section. In the garden.
Yard's not quite big enough for that, Ken. I'm enjoying the fact that we have a small yard, but I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and he's talking about these exotic plants and shrubs that are not really Okanagan plants, but he likes to push the envelope and try some of these things. And, some trees, for instance, the monkey puzzle tree and things like that can survive here under certain circumstances, but I have no room. I don't have room for that. I'm more into the dwarf alpine collections.
Yeah, that's great.
Rather than big trees and shrubs. Big trees and shrubs, to collect them, you have to have some
much
more room than I have.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think my favorite native plant is the Holodiscus discolor. The ocean spray shrub.
Okay, yes.
Which is really, it's common throughout the entire Okanagan, but it's sometimes overlooked. It is, unfortunately, natural deer browse, so the deer will eat it first. It's their natural food supply. But it is beautiful when the deer don't get it, and that's just a really good plant.
There's one plant out there in native. Well, penstemon is another one I'd like to have.
Yes. Have you noticed them blooming out along Wood Lake there?
Woody penstemon.
Right out when you're going to Oyama over the new overpass, and you just see them in full bloom right now on each side of the road. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. One of the plants that I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's like a euonymus of some sort, spreading plant that you see up on the Coquihalla.
Oh, Ceanothus volupnus.
Yes.
Yes,
Why do not people plant more?
You can get it, but it's purchased through those native plant nurseries.
Yeah,
it is a very cool plant, though. I really like it, and I think it's a selection thing. Like the native plant growers are usually growing from seed because they're trying to keep the genetic diversity. But if you could get one of the plants or take a few cuttings off of one that is just the right size and shape. Because some of them are nice and low and kind of, it almost looks like a donut laying on the ground, like that would be its shape. Yeah. It would be wide and short, but up to about maybe 3 feet high in the middle, but up to maybe about 8 or 10 feet in diameter. So similar to like a juniper, but they're evergreen, and they have nice round green leaves.
Yeah.
And
I just love
and they flower.
I just love them, and I think that for folks who are trying to really conserve water and whatnot, that would be an ideal kind of a ground coverish plant, a foundation planting, all sorts of things you can use it for, and ceanothus, and you'll see them in bloom fairly soon. I think on the Coquihalla, right on the side of the Coquihalla, especially between Merritt and Hope. You'll see them on the side hills there and doing their thing. I think they're a fabulous plant. I'm going to start looking into a little bit more. We've been doing some work with the folks, the Ecoscapes people regarding riparian areas. And we've been dealing with some nurseries that handle, the snowberry and other native plants, shrubs, and I think there's potential in that for certain areas of gardens, rather than just the formal thing. But you got to have room to do it. Got to have room. Now, I don't have any room in my yard. I'm roomed out as far as my garden goes, but that's okay. There's lots of people that have the room, and I suggest that might be a corner area of the property where you want to take some native plants, and even if they're not doing a riparian situation there.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's kind of hard to get some of those, like we were talking about the Mariposa lily one day and how that's such a cool native plant. And it is quite lovely. It doesn't have much body to it. It's not like it doesn't have much form or shape, but it certainly has a beautiful blossom. But that, I think, would be a fun plant to try to grow.
Well, on a last note, before we do the tips and plants, Ken, the BC Invasive Species Action Month is May, and it's proclaimed Invasive Species Action Month, ISAM, is the short version of it, to raise awareness of invasive species and encourage the public to take action. Everyone can take action during this time and help prevent the spread of invasive species. Here are some ideas on how you can take part. What you want to do is go to the website, and that'll give you all the information that you need. Just look up, just Google Invasive Species Action Month, and you will come up with the website to tell you all about what's going on. I think it's very, very important. The way the world is now, the connections we have via airplanes and what have you, you want to be very, very careful about what comes in and be aware of perhaps how to curtail some of that. I'm thinking of that darn mollusk that's coming through, the clam or whatever it is.
The zebra mussel.
Zebra mussel.
Really, really scary.
That's a scary thing.
That is like, the end of lakes, and there's people that sometimes, that's why they have the inspection sites up for all boats and watercraft, but specifically ones that come from out of province. We do not want this in our water system anywhere for any reason. It must be kept out. So please be diligent. It gets inside the boat, into the bilge, or right inside, and the little eggs or the little nymphs are microscopic in size. So any water that's transferred from one place to the next, it's just a bad thing. Let's keep it at bay.
Ken, that's it for today. We're going to give our tips and plants of the week.
You betcha.
Yeah, well, my tip of the week is last week's tip, but that's okay, folks, because many of you didn't know that to begin with. Sow smaller but more frequent sowings: peas, radishes, beans, lettuce. I'm going to sow some more beans along the way instead of having them all come on at once. And my plant of the week is the beautiful peony red charm. It is a fabulous peony, double peony.
Mm-hmm.
It's
a beauty.
Yep.
Very nice. I also have a tip in a plant, and my tip of the week is that when you're growing plants in raised beds, you often get a little bit of an advantage because that bed is warmer and it heats up faster in the spring, so you can get things out a little bit earlier, and it certainly makes a difference, especially plants that love heat. All right, my plant of the week this week is a saxifraga. This one is called Ardensii, and it is the mossy saxifrage, and I saw a beautiful planting of it, and it was just a beautiful mass planting. I couldn't help but to take a little video of it, so I'm going to put that video up online on either probably Facebook and Instagram and go from there. But that's my tips and plants for this week. Remember to check growercoach.com.
There you go. And my Shy Gold quote of the week is a deep one, so think about this, folks. For those who think wood anatomy and tree anatomy are the same, I would like to see them put a fork into a steak that's still on the hoof. Ooh, that's deep.
That's deep.
On that note, we're going to say goodbye. We'll see you again next week with more AM 1150 Garden Show.